Hey, this is Scott, and today I'm here to give my final overall review of the Zhiyun Smooth 4 smartphone gimbal. So I made a couple of videos already about the kind of flagship feature of this Zhiyun Smooth 4, which is the vertigo zoom feature. I've showed you how to do it both manually and automatically using the ZY Play app. Today I'm going to focus more on my overall impressions and thoughts after using this for a couple of weeks, some of the pros, some of the cons, and kind of thinking about where it comes in the Zhiyun lineup. Zhiyun's line of smartphone gimbals is kind of confusing the way they name them. This is the Smooth 4, but it is not an upgrade or a next level Smooth 3. The Smooth 3 is still kind of a standalone, I imagine it as a flagship kind of gimbal for smartphones. Its build quality is just on another level, but this is more of a kind of evolution of the Smooth Q, which was the plastic kind of baby brother of the Smooth 3 before. The Smooth 4 is also very plasticky, but full disclosure, I have actually dropped this from a considerable height straight onto cement, and it bounced a couple times, but it did not break and it did not crack. So even though it is relatively plastic, the build is actually not bad, at least in my experience. I was surprised that it didn't break, to be honest with you, but it bounced back and it works just fine after that, so that's pretty reassuring. The overall design of this compared to the Smooth Q and other smartphone gimbals, it has a lot of buttons and knobs and everything on here, and that's nice because you can control almost everything, especially if you're connected to the ZY Play app. You can control almost everything from the handle of the gimbal. You don't really ever have to touch your phone except to initially connect your phone to the gimbal. But it's kind of overwhelming when you first get this, and you're definitely going to want to make sure that you read the manual on this one to make sure you know what each of these buttons do, because some of them are labeled, but some of them are not so clearly labeled, and you're going to need to know that before you can get the full kind of range of features that this does offer. The design of the handle on here is not perfectly round. It's kind of a semi-round design, and to be completely honest with you, I don't really like it as much as some of the other handles. The Zhiyun Smooth 3, for example, is just a simple round handle, and while it doesn't have a whole lot of grip on there, it does fit in my hand a lot easier, and my wife and my friends said the same thing. But, you know, that aside, it is still easy enough to hold. It's lightweight because it is so much plastic in this build, very lightweight. Some of the buttons, you're definitely going to need two hands to get to just because of the way that you hold it. Your fingers aren't going to be able to reach the higher buttons. You're either going to need two hands or you're going to need to shift your hand up from kind of the standard holding position to get access to those. So that's a little bit not disappointing because I kind of think there's no way around that with this many functions built into the handle. But just be aware that it's not just like you can reach everything right from your standard grip. The button on the back has an up and a down button. You can kind of comfortably reach the down button, which I personally use more often anyway, which we'll talk about later. But to reach the up side, the top part of that button, you do have to readjust your grip again. And, you know, it can become a little bit easy to accidentally press something when you're trying to shift your grip to reach something. So again, I think it's kind of unavoidable with this much built into the handle, but it's not overall my favorite design. One thing that I do like about the build of this is that it has a little kind of notch in the handle here where you can lock it into place in this closed position here like I have it. And that allows you to put the gimbal into kind of standby mode even when the power's on and your phone's connected. If you push it down into this lock, it will go into standby mode, which is really nice for when just carrying it around, or if you're trying to look through the videos or photos on your phone. It's nice to be able to put that into standby mode, not have to turn the gimbal off or, you know, worry about messing it up or anything like that, reconnecting your connection to the app. It's really nice and convenient to have that. Although if you have to extend the arm all the way to balance your camera, in the fully extended position, it doesn't quite fit in here. The clearance is not quite enough to push it into that standby mode. So if you have the absolute maximum level of extension to get your phone balanced in here, you won't be able to take advantage of that as easily. It's pretty tight. You might be able to put it in there, but it's pretty tight. Speaking of that, the weight capacity of this is a little bit less than the Smooth 3, for example. I'll put the numbers on screen. I don't remember them, or I'm not confident that I remember them accurately off the top of my head, but it is a little bit less, and because of that, the arm of this does extend a little bit less than the Smooth 3. And I guess those two things kind of go hand in hand. There's less weight that you need to balance, so it doesn't need to extend as far. But I've been using it with the iPhone 10, and it's worked just fine for me. Taking it out of the case, I have a small case on there, but taking it out of the case does make it work easier. But if I'm in a rush, it does also work with the case attached. It's pretty much identical to the clip on the Smooth 3. So if you've ever used that, or if you've seen my reviews on that before, then you'll know how it works. They did also include a little mini tripod with this, which seems to be kind of a trend. They included one with their Crane 2, the DSLR gimbal as well. That one's really nice. It was all metal. This one's very plasticky, but it's more than enough for this size and weight. So I really do appreciate that they included that. Unlike the Smooth 3, this does not really come with a very usable case. It comes in this basically styrofoam box. This is nicer than, typical styrofoam, so it's not unusable, Inside it has this kind of layout here where you can fit everything in here very nicely, and it's better than having nothing. So, this is definitely not just a terrible styrofoam case. Like I said, it's styrofoam, but nice enough that you can use it if you have nowhere else to store it. So moving on to the actual functions, that, like I said, there's a lot built into the handle of this, and you can control pretty much everything as long as you're connected to the ZY Play app. I'm not going to go too much into the app in this video. It's not my favorite. There are some issues with it, but it gets the job done, and you can control pretty much everything just straight from this handle without having to actually touch your phone, which is nice. You have a menu button, which is pretty obvious what it does. There's a display button. There's a button to switch back and forth between the two functions of this wheel, which are to control your focus and to control your zoom. There's also a camera button, which you can assign to a different function, such as the vertigo feature, which I've talked about in my other video. There's a wheel on here, and of course you can turn it to scroll through the menu, but you can also press the wheel in 4 directions. To control things like your exposure compensation, to change the camera to selfie mode, things like that. There's a record button, of course, which you can start and stop recording with. And there's a little switch on the bottom here, which I actually really like, that you can just manually switch between pan, follow, and lock modes. I like this a lot because it's easy to see what mode you're in, and very quickly and without having to guess, switch back and forth between the two. You don't have to kind of play this game of clicking and double clicking and remembering what mode you're in and how to get to the next mode and things like that. It's a very simple and easy to use design. I like this feature. On the back, you have, like I said, that two-way button. The bottom of this button enables the full follow mode when you have it pushed down. So again, I really like this functionality because you can keep it in pan, follow, or lock mode, and then just when you want to move the gimbal up or down, move more, you can just hold this down and it will follow you in that moment, and then let it go and it will stay where it is. And if you double click this, it will also return to the home position, which is a small thing, but I really appreciate having that. I've talked about it in my review of the Smooth 3. I wanted some function where you could just quickly and easily return to the home position. I'm glad that it's here, and it's incorporated really well into this easy to reach button that also has a very nice functionality of temporarily enabling full follow mode. The top part of this button will enable what is called the phone go mode, which is Zhiyun's kind of new feature, which is basically a very fast follow mode, and it will follow your movements much faster than the standard modes. And this can be used, of course, to follow fast motion, but also to create some cool effects, which you can use for kind of in-camera transitions. You'll need to connect clips afterwards in the computer or something, but you can, whip pan out and whip pan into your shots and then connect those two in post, and it will have a really cool kind of seamless transition effect. You can do that basically in camera using that phone go mode. So it's cool to have that available. So if you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it is there, and it's again very quick and easy to access. You don't have to switch over into that mode and then switch back out of it. You can use it only when you need to, only when you want to, which is I think a really good way to implement it in this gimbal. So in terms of performance, we'll start with the stabilization, of course. It's pretty much on par with the Smooth 3 or pretty much any other smartphone gimbal on the market from what I can see. I think the reason that you're going to be choosing this over one of those others is the incredible range of features that you're getting thrown into this very affordable gimbal. You have the wheel, which is very unique. You control your focus and zoom. That's a very unique feature, and it can be very useful to get some very unique footage. You also have a bunch of buttons built into the handle here where you can control pretty much every aspect of the ZY Play app right from the handle without having to touch your phone. Of course, the ZY Play app also has its own issues, but I'm not really going to touch on that too much because the app is, of course, constantly being updated, and what I say here is probably not going to be true in a month or 2 months or 3 months, and also it'll differ from, iPhone to Android. And speaking of that, of course, a lot of people have had issues with the ZY Play app on Android. I'm an iPhone user, but I did try this out on my friend's Android, I think a Galaxy S8, and I did kind of get the feeling that there were some issues with it. The zooming was very choppy. I wouldn't be able to use the vertigo effect because of that. It had some issues with drifting out of focus. I was only able to choose up to 1080 30p video, which it may be some setting on the phone itself that I didn't adjust. I'm not comfortable with Android phones, so I'm probably not the best kind of authority to speak on that. But I'll leave it at there does seem to be some issues with the app itself and Android phones. But of course, the stability on here is still on par with all of the other choices that you have on the market. So even if you don't use the app, you should be able to still get smooth footage from this because the stabilization is there. I still do recommend the Smooth 3 if you want something a little bit higher up, something with a better build quality. It can hold a little bit more weight. It's worked great for me. It's simple. It's really, really solidly built. It comes with a carrying case, a very nice carrying case. There's a lot of good things about the Smooth 3, but if you're looking for a lower priced, very well-functioning gimbal, this is incredible. You're getting a ton of features in this, and I've really enjoyed using it. Again, it's plastic. That's one of the biggest things I think you'll notice in terms of the difference between the Smooth 3. But like I said, I dropped it pretty hard, and it survived without any issues at all. So I can't really complain about the build quality in terms of actual real-world use because of that. So throughout this video, I've showed you some of the clips that I've taken with this, and hopefully it'll show you some of the different features, the phone go mode and the vertigo feature and everything like that. And hopefully you can get an idea for the actual performance of this. Like I said, I've been very satisfied with it. I'm not very good with actually getting good quality out of my iPhone video. I'm sure there are other users that can get better actual video quality, but again, hopefully you can see how this itself performed and get an idea of if it's for you or not. But I would definitely recommend it if you're in the market for something in this price range. It is a very, very well-performing gimbal, and I would give it my recommendation. If you have any other questions or comments, as always, just leave them down below and I will definitely get back to you. If you like this video or found it helpful, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Check out those videos that I posted on how to use the vertigo feature. And as always, thank you for watching.